Good evening. It's Jonathan again, and I'm just back with some more great information about apologetics. Um, Tonight, we were going to be discussing specifically, um, man, it slipped my mind. Sorry. Pretty much the existence of God, and just wanted to dialogue and talk just a little bit about, um, you know, kind of the apologetic way of viewing the existence of God, right? And so personally, I know that God exists because of my own personal experiences, because of my own relationship that I have with Him. I hear from Him. He talks to me. He's confirmed things in my life, and He's shown Himself evident in my life, right? And I believe that is something that's more personal and intrinsic with me. But if we're explaining the existence of God to someone who's maybe atheist, agnostic, and unbeliever, then that justification of His existence, I don't think would really fly. So I just kind of wanted to talk about, I guess, the foundation of God, if that's even a real thing, right? Or we talk about who made God, what is the beginning of God, how did God begin, right? Or how can God exist if that he wasn't created, right? And so I kind of wanted to talk about that, and just based off of the research that we have, we found some really great information, and really just wanted to discuss and talk about it, right? So atheists, they often ask, when you bring up the discussion or the topic of God, right? They say, well, who made God? And that's a great question, right? And I don't think the answer really is as simple as they would hope for it to be. But we do understand that in order for God to exist, God needs a cause, right? That's what they tell us. Believe the law of causality. It says that everything that comes to be needs a cause, right? And so they say, well, how can God exist if He never was created, right? That there is no beginning. And so it gets a little complex. It gets a little ambiguous to talk about. But if you'll stay with me, we'll get somewhere, right? But the law of causality, everything that comes to be needs a cause. So the atheists and unbelievers say, well, who made God, right? And how can you answer that question without assigning a cause to God? Well, the thing is, God is timeless, right? And He's not bound by the laws and the understanding of time. He's the uncreated one. He wasn't created, right? And so the law of causation, it does say everything that comes to be needs a cause, but the part that needs to be stressed and the part that needs to be understood is that God could never come to be because He was already there from the beginning, right? That may have went over your head, right? But think about it, say it out loud maybe, and it'll make sense, right? But God could never come to be because He was already there from the start. And when I think of an analogy, I think of, and when we think about starts, right? You know how when you're starting a race, there's an official that says 3, 2, 1, go, and then he fires off a pop gun or an actual gun, right? And that sound that's released from that pop gun, the cause is because the race is starting, right? And so once that sound pops off, then the runners begin to run, right? Well, you think about God as someone who's already been running from the start. So there was never a 3, 2, 1, go. And then the reaction being that someone begins to run, but in actuality, God has been there the entire time. So He was running before there was even a start, before there was even a 3, 2, 1, go. God was already there. And so that kind of debunks the theory of God needs a cause. Why? Well, because He doesn't really need a cause because He was already there from the beginning, right? And so, or really before the beginning is the crazy part. And it's the part that maybe our feeble minds won't understand because we're so limited in what we can think and what we know, right? In comparison to an eternal God. But if you think about the fact that He was there before the beginning, when we think beginning, we think the very start, that there's nothing that comes before it, right? Or even with numbers, if you can explain like the number 0, there's no number that comes before 0 except negative numbers, but that's a whole nother thing. But 0 is always a start, right? We start at 0 and then we go 1, 2, 3. We talk about age. We say that, the baby was born. After they were born, they go from 0 to, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. But obviously, what came before the baby? Well, the parent, technically. And so with that kind of, that analogy, it kind of gives you a little bit of an understanding, but God being the timeless, unmatched, uncreated God that he is, can't really be explained, or at least not by me right now, in the way that it could make 100% sense to you, right? But with this analogy, you understand that a parent was there before the child was, right? And so God being the parent in our lives honestly existed before our lives started, if that makes sense. And so it's, like I said, it's complex, but it makes sense because God, no one created him. He was there. He's the he's the all powerful being. Like, he was there before anyone. He created everything. And so when we talk about like science, and a lot of people have these juxtapositions between science and faith, right? And they say that, well, science can't really exist because of religion, and religion can't really exist because of science. They kind of disprove each other. Well, a famous quote that was it Einstein that said it? But he pretty much says that. Oh, let me confirm who said that. I'm so sorry. Yes, it was Einstein, right? And so he pretty much says that science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. And so that's very profound, actually, because it kind of throws away this notion that science cannot exist without religion, and religion cannot exist without science. But in actuality, the two can coexist because science does prove the existence of God. There are some things that are just almost too perfect, right? And you think about the world that we inhabit, the fact that we live in an habitable world, right? And the fact that there are other quote unquote planets, or there are other quote unquote areas in the galaxy that are just uninhabitable, that are just filled with water or filled with gases that we won't be able to breathe in. But the fact that we have a home here on Earth and that we live here, right? That's scientific. You think about geography, you think about the atmosphere, you think about gravity. It proves the existence of God. Not only just that, but that the God that we serve and understand, he is super intelligent because he has designed this planet for us to live on, right? This earth for us to live in. And it's such a beautiful thing to conceptualize science and to think about like how big brain God really is, and how just sovereign God really is when you think about science. So my argument is that it really should, if we really do seek to understand God, we don't seek to just disprove God. We don't seek to just prove God. But when we seek to understand who he is and his divine design, that's good. His divine design. When we seek to understand his divine design, we should really be in awe of who he is, and in awe of what he's created, and in awe of what he has given us. And it's awesome to be able to look at science, to be able to look at the anatomy of a human, homeostasis, the fact that our bodies can heal themselves, the fact that our hearts, beat themselves, the fact that everything is provided from the water that we need for our bodies to function, food that we need for our bodies to function is provision. Like, God gave us so much, and he also gave us sustainability and provision, right? And you can see that illustrated throughout the scientific world. So it's so much to talk about. This class has just really been mind expounding, right? And it's been such a great experience, but running low on time. So that's going to be all for this video. If anybody else is watching this and you have questions, you can ask them in the comments, and I would love to research them. I might not have the answer right off the bat, but I do have sources that are able to help me research. So if you do have questions, let me know. I would love to research. I would love to dialogue, and we can talk it out. Thank you. See y'all next time. Peace.